how can we master this skill? How can we become the true king of this skill from today onwards, so that we are able to face any hurdle in this negotiation battle whenever we face any. As always, guys, I will take you through the basics of negotiation along with Asit. The first part will be the what and why. Today, the what and why will be a little shorter because this is something which is very common, and I'll just introduce you to the concept. Post that, I will introduce you to the principles of negotiation along with Asit, and where I will seek Asit's support and help today is in explaining his real life scenarios on how these principles of negotiation become very, very handy. For the first time on the Crack platform, today we will take you through a live negotiation. A negotiation where Asit and I play a party each. This is a live case study where very interestingly we'll pick up a very interesting topic from our day-to-day life, where we do negotiation almost and get worried about this particular negotiation a lot of times. And again, for the first time, for the Crack platform, we have kept it 20 minutes for question answers. So this will happen from 1 to 1:20. So let's get going. First, what is negotiation? हम सबको पता है. I tried to put it in very simple terms on what is a negotiation. I think when I tried to define and I read through a lot of content and also from the experiences of my personal life, I realized negotiation needs three very important things. The first is the art to collaborate. A lot of times, as Vipin rightly mentioned, we confuse negotiation with a haggle. Price haggling को हम negotiation समझने लगते हैं. That's one big mistake that we do. Although we don't realize when we are on the negotiation table, we are supposed to collaborate and reach a win-win. So that's the first important thing in the definition. It's the art to collaborate. You need two things when you are collaborating. First is you need strong data to back up what you are saying. Data not only from your current life, but also from the market, also from the bigger universe. Anything that corroborates what you're trying to say is data that can help you. The second thing, guys, is a skill that lot of us underestimate in the professional world, but I think is the most important skill that is even above IQ and DQ. DQ is data quotient, IQ is intelligence quotient. Emotional quotient or emotional intelligence becomes a critical part of negotiation, because that helps you in understanding what the other person needs, helps you in understanding that you need to listen, helps you in getting into that person's shoes and showing empathy. So if I want to define negotiation, it's the art to collaborate through data and through emotional intelligence. Any of you have any doubts while Asit and I are taking you through the session, please feel free to write in the chat box, and Vipin, who is the moderator, will keep going back to you when you are typing your questions in the chat box. So moving on, very simply, after what is negotiation, I would want to move to why is negotiation important. I think this one is a no-brainer, but for the sake of starting and setting context of the session, I guess negotiation is most important to get what you deserve in life. Now, it could simply be the price of the grocery that you have purchased from the supermarket, or it could be the biggest position or promotion that you have got in your life. It could simply be the best rate for the house or the car that you purchase, or it could be the positioning that your brand needs in someone else's eyes. But it is about getting what you deserve. It is about really standing up and making sure that the world notices and you always are getting your share. Can you give me some examples? And I have already, for example, noted down some that I could think of. And you have also in the beginning of the session mentioned a lot of them. These are all the possible areas where the skill and the art of negotiation becomes very, very handy and becomes very important for all of us. So therefore, guys, starting with the most important section, which is the principles of negotiation, and how we will take the session today, as I explained in the agenda, is we will give you six simple principles of negotiation. What I want to do, guys, with all of you today is I want to help you carry back simple to-dos from the negotiation session that we have today.
Yeah, and Debojit, if I can add here, and
Yeah.
typically in any corporate life, as you rightly said, this is one of the critical skills that is needed to move up the ladder. Okay? And therefore, there are many courses which the corporates typically run, and I and you yourself and many of you may have undertaken many courses which are in few days or few months. However, what we are trying to do here, as the budget said, is that we try to look at from our past experience which are the key principles that we think have worked, or something if it has not worked, is that a learning for us. Okay, so objective is that if by end of this session of 1 and 1.5 hours, if you know that if in any negotiation, if I apply these principles, I'll be at a much better stage. That will be a very successful outcome for us.
Yeah, thanks, Asil. So let's move on to the first one. As we said, we fix the first one. The first and the most critical overlying factor, guys, in a negotiation is to reach a win-win. Is to reach a collaborative stage where both parties leave the table feeling that I have found value, I have reached the necessary outcome that I wanted to reach. As you know, with everyone that we work with or we have a relationship with in our personal and professional life, it's an ongoing relationship. By ongoing relationship, I mean, even if you want to strike just one deal with a partner, you never know, you might meet that partner in a different company 10 years later, 15 years later, and you might meet the same organization maybe 20 years later when you are part of a different company. This is a professional example. So it's key that you understand that it's an ongoing relationship and don't focus on short-term wins, which is normally a win-lose. Think long run and make sure that it's a win-win. Physically, I have from my own experience seen that when you're negotiating, it helps to sit on the same table with the partner and negotiate the entire environment that you're on the same side. Secondly, overall, it should be very importantly put that there is value for both sides. Empathy comes in here, where you're putting yourself in the shoes of the other person, and therefore the other person realizes that you're actually want to add value to their cause also. Taking examples from the famous movie, which is the 12 Angry Men. This is a very, very old movie about, I think, 60 years later. But if you remember the protagonist, if you have seen the movie, the protagonist in each one of the situations focuses on the fact that the other person is heard and everyone's views has been given importance, which becomes an important part of a win-win.
Yeah, and one key thing to look for after any negotiation is that does the other party feels that it's a fair deal for that person. Okay, it's not that okay, there may be chances where you think that okay, I have an upper hand and I believe it's I have done this successful negotiation. However, if the other person feels that he has been again it's been unfair deal for them, then at some point or the other it is going to hurt. I mean, imagine all these examples that you have quoted. Have you come across situation where you felt that I'm talking to a wall? I mean, why can't that other person just understand? Imagine the feeling that you must be going through versus a scenario where at least you understand that okay, at least that person is registering what I am saying. Okay, he's considering my point of view and he's willing to take one step forward, and that gives you that confidence that you can take it two step forward, which is a very, very important thing. Again, I can talk from my past experience in all the cases where I felt that okay, I have won this deal and it's a significant benefit for my company, but it's not so beneficial for the other company. for sure at a later point of time the client themselves have shot back, because it's again a long-term deal. So very, very fundamental core principle is that the other person should feel that it's a fair deal for that person.
Yeah, thanks, Asif. So, guys, this is the first principle of win-win. Both parties have to leave the negotiation table satisfied. There is no other way. A very is the skill of preparing, going prepared when you sit on the negotiation table. Now, what do I mean by preparation? Very importantly, you need to know about the other person and the organization or the situation or the context they represent. So when I mean the other person, I mean what are their goals? Where do they want to reach? What are their passion areas and what is their need? When I mean gaps, I mean what is the need that they have because of which they're sitting with me in the negotiation? What is their style? What is the normal style of that other person? If you have some data about the other person, is he too pushy? Is he normally soft spoken? Does he normally, is a financial metric very important for him? Is he, does he take into account the other person's view? So what is that person's reputation and style? When you're preparing will help you have certain points already. For example, if you're going on an interview, if you get to know the LinkedIn profile of the interviewer and also talk to a few people who have already gotten interviewed by that person, it always helps. So that is something that goes into a preparation phase. Similarly, in a lot of organizations, when you try to go and sell a product, I have been in a sales role for almost the entire 10 years of my life. It is very important to understand what is the role of the person that you're going
Yeah.
to meet, and in that organization, what are the various roles that people play. Is he a user? Is he an influencer? Is he a decision maker? For example, in a family, मैं आपको एक फैमिली का एग्जांपल देता हूँ. Normally the father of the family is the decision maker, the decider. If you see the picture on the left, a lot of time the kids are the influencers or the initiators. That's a role that kids play. Sometimes the kid is even the user. So a lot of times, although the father might be the decision maker, the eventual buyer might be the mother in the family. And maybe the grandfather is the gatekeeper. He's making sure who comes in and who doesn't come in. This is from a family perspective. Similarly, from an organization perspective, there will be an influencer, there will be a user, there will be a decision maker, and there might be an initiator. Be sure whom you are talking to. Your negotiation pitch changes based on whom you are talking to, and of course you need to eventually reach the decision maker or find ways to get your word reach the decision maker.
And why this is important, and one of the key steps here to identify who you are talking to is because you may be talking to the influencers or the users, but the decision maker has a completely different sets of criteria for selection. Then all your efforts would not have been waste. I mean, let's take a practical example. You know, you must have gone to Chroma's store, right? And sometimes suppose you are trying to negotiate the price of an washing machine. Okay, the sales guy says, sir, इसके नीचे तो मैं जा ही नहीं सकता, मुझे manager से बात करना है. Suddenly you feel that what a waste of a time. I would rather talk to a manager than wasting my time in front of that salesperson. But that's again a normal scenario, but that sales guy is not very well paid, so that's the strategy of Chroma. But imagine yourself being in a situation where you are representing the company. If the other company person feels that you are not the decision maker, you have very little influence, then your positioning also reduces significantly. Okay, so one of the again when I started my career in consulting, there are two parts. So one is where you deliver projects, second is where you actually go and sell to clients. Okay, so in my earlier stage, when I had pitched for a proposal, that was my first proposal, and their procurement team called me for a negotiation. Okay, and I had a word with the manager. His name is Kunal Khanna. I am giving you full autonomy to take the decision on the pricing, and the reason for that is that the moment the procurement guy knows that you are not in charge of the pricing, he will not speak to you ever after. He will directly then speak to me. So that's a lesson that I have remembered always. And in that time, in the call itself, I had already prepared, what's the price range that I need to have. So I had established my position as a decision maker in front of your customer. And after that, Novartis was one of the most successful clients which I handled. And in that year, that was one of the highest grossing sales that we had ever from that client. So small things, but very important to identify what your role is and versus what the role from a customer perspective.
Yeah, interesting, Asim. Uh, Also, in the preparation, I feel it will be great if you can do a small role play before the real negotiation happens. This basically means envisioning how the conversation will go. I normally do it with the mirror when I go for large negotiations with big guys, where I have to crack a strong deal. What it helps is, it helps me in imagining what could be the possible questions and objections the person will ask, and then prepare accordingly. I've seen a lot of people who do it with a partner, maybe a mentor or a partner you trust, and then coming up with certain situations which can go right, can go wrong, which is part of the preparation. Also, something that can help you are the media releases. If it's a strong B2B deal, or it's an interview, or it's even an appraisal, or if it is something, even if you're approaching a girl for your life partner, it is always better to do some study online before you kind of reach out, in terms of the different forms of content that's already available about that company, about that person, which will help you understand and know that person better. Even in a personal example, just going through the Facebook or a Instagram profile of your life partner might help you understand them a little better, which is a personal negotiation, let's say. So also, when you're trying to negotiate with an organization, it's always good to connect before with some primary stakeholders, maybe not necessarily the negotiator, but some primary stakeholders in that particular organization. In this case, I would want to open it up to the audience. If you can type your answers on the chat box, what preparations do you remember doing before some important negotiation that you have done? Can you guys just help us?
Yeah, and as people are writing, Debojit, I just want to share one example, and again reiterate the importance of preparation. Again, many times one of the myths which people carry is that typically who are introverts are not very good negotiators. Okay, because again, similarly myth is all those who are introverts are not very good at a sales. Okay, which definitely is not truth. Okay, I myself is an introvert. Okay, what helps for those kind of people is that the more preparation you do, the better you are with respect to understanding what the situation is of your client or your customer, and therefore you manage your pitch accordingly. Okay, I mean, one such example, the Novartis example that I talked about, subsequently after 1 year, I got a call from the strategy team saying that, look, Asit, you had done one project, but there's a request that there is a new view head who has come in. He has requested that you need to do this new project. I said, look, it doesn't make sense because we have already done one project. The strategy person said, no, I agree with you, but I think let's just go and talk to the customer, talk to our view head that it is not it. I said, okay, fair enough, but I need to understand where your view head is coming from. So when I went and met him, I realized that the view head is new to the pharma industry. He comes from an FMCG background. Okay, and what he needs is an objective assessment of their field force. Okay, based on which he will take some critical decision with respect to their investment. And what he needs is all the information that I as a company has, as I as IQVIA has. There is no one else who can fulfill his need. What this did was that at that moment when I had this conversation with him, I knew that my pitch will kill the competition because there's nobody else who will be able to fulfill that need. Okay, and I charged a premium to that customer because I knew that based on my project or my input, he is willing to take an investment worth millions of dollars. So there's a significant ROI that the BU head is going to get, and I won the project very easily. And that again goes to show that if you really understand who the key people are, understand what they need, you will be able to successfully pitch and convert that customer.
Yeah, Vipin, thank you, Asid. Vipin, you can help us with some preparation tips that people use.
Yeah. So people have shared a lot of comments actually related to preparation. She says she prepared. Was having a CXO level hiring, and she prepared herself on taxation, which is a very technical thing, so that she can explain him well on what he's getting now and what he will get in the future. Uh, we have Abhay here, who says you should be ready with what are the objections that can come, as you were mentioning, Debuji. What is the commercials that will come up, and what is the scope of discussing commercials during the session, during the negotiation. And also double check on the tools required to sign the deal. I think one of the people also mentioned that in most negotiations we are not prepared with eventually signing a deal. So having a agreement ready is a good action step that you can take, so that there is confidence that we are going to close the deal and the people actually sign on the dotted line.
Got it. Thank you, guys. I see a lot of inputs correctly. Moving to the third step, uh, I think this, to my mind, was the most important step that has helped me get a lot of deals in my life. This is to know what all do you have on the table that you can put on the table as a lever. A lot of us miss out on the critical parts, only focus on the critical parts and miss out on a lot of value adds that we can possibly get from the deal. These you can call as the negotiables and the non-negotiables. One is negotiables. You are flexible on these parts. So if the other party demands this part, then maybe you can work around these parts and give them a solution. For example, I was sitting in an interview in which I was the interviewer. The person in front of me said designation is very important for me. And sir, if you can give me a designation that I want, then I will be very happy. What I realized was this one was a negotiable for me. I am okay with giving him a designation he wants because I was handling a startup at that point of time. But my constraint, my non-negotiable was his salary. So what I actually did was I offered him 2.5 lakhs lesser than what maybe I would have offered him given his experience and given his past background, and gave him the designation he wanted because he was very happy and job satisfied with the designation that he got, and that was his next aspiration. So you need to be clear on the table what are some of the levers that I have. It could also be deal sweeteners. A lot of time we leave the table ourselves feeling happy and the other person feeling a little unhappy. At that point, if you leave the table with a deal sweetener, ठीक है sir, I will also give you an extra call center service for this particular deal. Which
Let's come to that switching job, Debojit, because again, all of us have switched jobs. Many times, after joining, we realize, oh shit, this is what I missed. Okay, many others have got. So just again, quick question to the group. Okay, if you are switching the job, what are the possible negotiation levers that you have? Okay, like for example, of course, CTC is one, right? Because you negotiate on the CTC. And Debojit mentioned one is about the role. Okay, what are the other levers that you think you have up your sleeves, which you can negotiate with your prospective employer? Again, put it in the chat, okay, so that we can see, and then share. Yeah, location. Ajay says, team size. How large is the team? Very good. Working hours. Can't work on Saturday. Wonderful. Yeah. Work-life balance. Company financials. What is the opportunity? CTC fixed and variable. Very nice. ESOPs. Are there any ESOPs which the companies can give? Wonderful. What's the role? Absolutely. Okay. Okay. So beyond this, okay, what can be the other? So let me give you an example. Okay, there was one candidate, at my previous company, IQVIA. So I was, looking for a great, fantastic guy. He was based out of Pune, and he said that, okay, for me again, I want to join consulting because he was in the industry. He was a medical doctor, an MBA. He wanted to move into consulting industry. So for me, I really like the role, but my challenge is the location. Okay, we try to understand, okay, what is the location challenge? It's like that, okay, my wife is an ophthalmologist, okay, and unless she gets settled in, I'll not be able to join. Okay, and because at IQVIA we are a healthcare company, we have partnerships with all these hospitals. We made sure that her wife got a job in a private hospital in Mumbai. that was an enormous value add, for that person, and that person still, works with me. Okay, in my current role at Roche, after I moved to Roche, she also joined me, because it not only helps you with getting the opportunity, but you also form a very long term relationship with that person. So the other small things which we typically tend to ignore, is that, for example, how many of you have checked with your prospective employer at when are you going to be eligible for your next cycle of promotion? Because many a times what we realize is that after we negotiate hard, but the next promotion cycle is say 18 or 20 months down the line. So basically again you're losing on 1 year, right? So relocation, allowance, okay. Again, key international opportunities, okay, some of these things that you mentioned. So make sure that if a company is not able to give you one, so for example CTC, you make sure that you put all the other levers in front of them so that you get a good deal.
Very, very relevant one, Asit. And all of us have been a part of this. In the negotiation lever, I would also want to put a critical bit, which is what should be your opening bid and the clarity of what is my floor price. Opening bid, I mean, what are you starting the negotiation with? In the opening bid, if you sound too much out of whack, then the person will feel maybe he's not even interested and therefore asking for something abnormal or enormous. But the opening bid has to be obviously a little stretched. We call it the negotiation flag normally, where you appear interested, but not necessarily that has to be the final one. The floor price, on the other hand, is a mental note that you want to carry with yourself, which tells you that post this, I will walk away. This is the final price or the final thing. Post this, I'll walk away. In a negotiation, it's almost very, very critical that in everyone, you are willing to walk away also. At least in the way you project yourself, your body language, and in most probable situations, even in the real situation itself, that you're willing to walk away. That will give you the strength to be flexible. That will give you the strength to open up and discuss rather than sounding desperate while you're negotiating. Here, I would want to end the point number 3 with a very critical theory. This theory is called the theory of perception or perceived power. Now, for example, I was hired by this. I had about 6 rounds of interviews when I joined Cardeco, and one of the rounds happened with this person who was who had a lot of gravitas when he used to speak, and I was almost intimidated by this person during the interview. The way he was asking me questions, I felt, oh God, he's not liking me. And you have these mental stories that are going on when you're giving interviews. And therefore I got a little bit more defensive while I was answering, because I felt this person in front of me is very powerful. Also, he had a CXO kind of a tag in his designation, and that did not help the cause. 2 weeks later, I met this person in a bar in Gurgaon on a Saturday evening, and he was dancing, drinking, and I don't know, was behaving as if I don't, and obviously it was a personal event for him. And although I watched him from a distance, I was thinking, oh God, I was giving so much importance just because he was showing that amount of gravitas and made that person feel more powerful than maybe what I should have. It happens in deals also, where you feel I'm sitting in front of a CEO or an owner or a DP, and therefore you give more power than you should. Power, remember guys, is always perceived. The person doesn't change. In my 6 interviews post joining Cardeco, I got a feedback that the third round went the worst, in which I felt the person is unnecessarily more powerful. And maybe if I would have been myself, I would have done well in that round also.
Yeah, and Debojit, I sent you an Excel file.
Okay.
And again, I'll just share how typically I go about my negotiation. And this is from a very recent example where we are trying to forge a partnership with one of the largest private equity players.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's again, this is just for you to look at what is the way in which you can go about preparation, about identifying what the negotiation lever is. On the left you see that, okay, what are the negotiation lever that you have. Okay, depending on which side of the table you have, your negotiation levers can be changed. In this case, for example, context here is that we were trying to outsource some of our products to another pharma company. And again, there was multiple players. So one of the negotiation lever for us was that what's the revenue that they'll be able to generate for us? What is the margin that they will give us? What is upfront payment that they can give? Again, the list is many and it can vary from one context to other, but it's very important that, so I list down that, okay, these are the 8 to 10 negotiation levers that I have when I negotiate with the company. At the same time, I also need to have a fair view with respect to what is the client's demand. For example, Remedio, one company in which we were negotiating. Okay, I have very clear mapped out. Okay, across each of this negotiation lever, this is what the demand is. Okay, and then I also map. Okay, which of the demands are legitimate, which we can agree. As you said, okay, it needs to be a fair deal, right? So I agree with, say, out of 10, I agree with 4. But there are some which is non-negotiable for me. Okay, for example, how we give margin, okay, the contract duration, that is non-negotiable for me. So clearly identify that this is where I have absolutely no scope with respect to negotiation. Okay, and for all the other elements, I will have an first initial proposal. Okay, this is what I will propose, keeping in mind what's my walkaway limit. Okay, with respect to revenue, this is my walkaway limit, because if they go below this, definitely this deal is not on. With respect to margin, if they go beyond this, then this deal definitely is not on. With respect to upfront investment, if they invest less, this definitely on. Keeping that in mind, I pitch what my initial anchor proposal is. And for each of my anchor proposal, I have a strong rationale, which again will the point that we'll talk about later. But I have a very strong rationale to make the other person feel that why I believe that this proposal is justified. And then during the negotiation, you kind of somewhere come in between with respect to where your initial proposal is versus what your walkaway limit is. Okay, because if you straight away give them, okay, this is what we can do, just take it or leave it, then again the other person may feel that, okay, you're just being too arrogant. The deal just does not work out. So this again is a method that works for me. Of course, it can be customized depending on the context that you have, but always keep in mind that these are my negotiation lever. This is what I definitely need. This is my walkaway limit, and this is what my initial proposal is, and what the rationale is.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Asit. Let's move to the fourth lever. 6, as I said, guys, this is the fourth one. Very important to evaluate the intent of the negotiation. And when we say intent of the negotiation, it is on both sides. First is when you get into a deal, you should have the intent to deal, or else do not enter the negotiation yourself. That's the first one. Whether you are in a position of power or in a position of weakness, it doesn't matter. First is have the intent to deal. Second is be sure the person you're talking to has the intent to deal. You can read it from body languages. That's a very important one, and maybe we can cover it in a different session, how body language and reading it is very important in any communication. But in the tone of the voice, in the body language, in the words that person is using, you can evaluate intent. Also, it's very important to react strongly to an untrustworthy party, just in case you think the person is not interested. I'll cover it with an example here. And this is a real school that I had visited in my last experience, where once we visited, it was one of the big schools in one of the metro cities. When the product, I was very happy. I told all the stakeholders in my company that they're going to take, this will be a multi-crore deal, and everyone was excited. When we reached there and started pitching, they asked a lot of questions, and they said, great, we'll meet within a week, everything hunky-dory, all levers satisfied, all preparation done, etc. 1 week later, they called us again, and they introduced us to a new set of people. And we again pitched to them the entire story, the entire reason of why they should take us. They again showed a lot of interest and said, we'll get back to you. 1 week later, they again called us, third time. Again, same story. Again, we pitched to the same band of people. And towards this time, I realized I'm pitching to the same user group again and again and again, without necessarily reaching the decision maker. And maybe, therefore, their intent is to just get information out of me rather than buying the product from me. What I did was, I escalated this matter to the prime decision maker in their school, their institute, organization, and told that we are very unhappy that as a established organization, we were called 3 times without no next actionables and steps. That guy not only apologized for the act that has happened, but also took a product which was not necessarily a prime product, but one of the affiliated products that we had, and we did some revenue. So the intent, guys, becomes a very critical one that you need to evaluate. Right? Not, and of course, making sure that you are not misrepresenting what has already been discussed or negotiated.
Yeah, and in the intent again, just as important as that, you should always check the intent of the other party. Again, it's always important that you also show similar level of intent, so that other person sees that okay, you are serious about this deal or this contract or this product or whatever. However, there's a thin line between showing intent and being desperate. What you do not want the other customer to feel that you are desperate, because that's when you lose your power. Okay, so let me give you an example. Okay, I was in my previous company, when I was consulting, I was telling you, I was an engagement manager. For the first time, I had targets to achieve. Okay, and I have been a high achiever. So again, in one quarter, I was not able to meet my target. Okay, and then what do I need to do to meet my target? Okay, so I had submitted one proposal to say Pfizer, which is again one of the largest pharma company in India, and I thought that okay, the client is taking some time because they may have some budget constraints. So I offered them 40% price reduction. Okay, and what happened after that is something I will never ever forget in my life. So not only I definitely did not get that project, and what the client did is that the client escalated this to our country GM, saying that your pricing is absurd. When all the time we have been asking you to negotiate on the price, you said that no, this is what your fixed billing is. Now all of a sudden, there's a guy where if he is in such a desperate situation, and they could feel my desperation. In such a desperate situation, when you want the deal and you are all of a sudden reducing the price. Okay, and this is a lesson which my country GM, again, to his credit, his name is Amit. He came and sat with me. He said, Asit, I completely understand why you did it, but always understand that the client should never have an absolute idea with respect to what your current situation is. Then you are completely losing the power, or you're giving the power to the other person. Again, the perceived power that Debajit talked about. So always show intent where the client knows that okay, this guy is committed. However, never ever show your desperation to get the deal.
Yeah. Very importantly, guys, the fifth step is to introduce an objective criteria. Sometimes when we are negotiating, we flow away with our emotions and we forget what is a realistic thing to discuss or ask for. For example, in the recent negotiation that I had with one of the big OEMs of the country, and for the interest of confidentiality, let's call them Honda. When I was negotiating with them, they were constantly saying that your offer that you are giving us is very high and we would not want to go ahead with the offer. We had given them an offer of about 63 lakhs. Once I told them that what we are charging for you on a per vehicle basis is about 3% of the vehicle value, and that's the industry benchmark that Cars24 and OLX are anyway charging. In fact, they're charging 3.5% on an average, and I am giving you 3%. Because you are trading with us in about 1,000 vehicles, therefore the overall sum is reaching there. They realize that, okay, this is as per the market standards and we can go ahead with that. We should not look at the overall figure. Also in this example, it's very important to not negotiate with yourself when you're introducing an objective criteria. The BD head that I had in this situation came back to me and said, boss, you're giving 63 lakhs, it's too much. Let's tell them 60 lakhs next time. So I said, aap mujhe ek baat batao, have they told us that they need 55 lakhs or 50 lakhs or for that matter 60 lakhs? No, they are just overall giving us their feeler. And a lot of times in negotiations, हमें लगता है सामने वाले को शायद थोड़ा कम चाहिए प्राइस, या हमें थोड़ा अपना डिमांड कम कर लेना चाहिए विदाउट उस बंदे के कुछ बोले हुए. So don't negotiate with yourself is also an important one. खुद ब खुद मत घटाओ unless you objectively understand कि सामने वाला कम चाहता है, and therefore you are reducing your ask or reducing your demand.
Yeah, and very important point is that sometimes, and especially when it comes to say salary increment, we sometimes hesitate to ask for it. Okay, and this is again a hard lesson which I learned. Okay, and again I was very young, in the consulting world. I thought I did everything possible to get the no best reward, but that just did not happen. Okay, and I was very upset that why this despite of the fact that I have performed, okay, my client satisfaction rates have been very high and I have not got it. Okay, so it's kind of quite disturbed. Okay, so then one day Amit Pakliwal, who was the country GM that point of time, and I was very young. I mean, I was at a like 4 or 5 hierarchy lower than where he was. Okay, he saw me and he said, Asit, let's go for a walk. Okay, so I went with Amit and he said, I said, you look disturbed, what happened? I said, look, Amit, I have worked so hard for this company, and when it comes to rewarding, and you're rewarding me, just like any other employee, then what's the motivation that I will have? Okay. And he said something which again I will never forget in my life. He said, one thing you should realize, I said, which may be contrary to your nature, is that you should always ask what you think you deserve. Okay, because he said that look, we also have not really come across what is it that you really need. Okay, if you're saying that okay, you would need an additional increment, how much is that, will that be enough for you? Okay, what other things that you need? Okay, he said if you do not ask, you will never get. But if you ask and you trust that the organization, okay, is the right company where they will make sure that your voice is being heard, then you ask and leave it. Okay, and that's something which I, because then the reason for that is that if you keep this in your heart, then all your work also gets affected. Okay, I said okay, I leave it. Okay, then within 6 months there was an out of turn. Okay, they had given me an exceptional case where they given me an additional increment, and in the next, in the 4 years I was with IQVIA, of course with very strong performance, my salary increased threefolds in 4 years time, and my base salary was not very small. My base salary was more than 20 lakhs. Okay, on that base, within 4 years, my salary increased three years. But I learned the lesson that okay, I will need to ask now what I deserve. It was contrary to my nature because I thought that okay, the world is fair. Okay, I should get what I deserve. Why do I need to pitch for myself? But unfortunately, that's not how the corporates work, because it's not that they deliberately do not want you to do well or they do not want to reward you, because they have so many other priorities. Your voice may not be reaching the right people. It's important that you be objective with your need, and be very clear with respect to your ask.
Yeah, thanks, Asit. Eye-opening for me also. The last one, which is the sixth step in the negotiation lever, is to address the why behind the what. When you sit on the negotiation table, guys, a lot of times you will hear statements jisse you tend to get emotional. I'll give you an example. I was sitting in front of an owner in my last organization, and that owner, as soon as I sat on the table, said that you are one of the worst organizations that I can think of in the market. आपके सर्विसेज खराब है, आप टाइम पे रिप्लाई नहीं करते हो, आपका प्राइस अननेसेसरीली बहुत ज्यादा है, आप डिस्काउंट्स नहीं देते हो, and I also think that you are not a trustworthy guy that I can work with. So my brain at that time first told me to take a back seat and feel bad about it. ये मेरे बारे में ऐसे कैसा बोल सकता है, मैंने तो अभी कुछ बोला ही नहीं है उसे, right? But the addressing the why behind the what logic helped me take a deep breath, and I replied to him, sir, the fact that you have started the conversation in this way makes me feel, and we can share what we feel about each other. And thank you for trusting me while starting the conversation. Can you specifically tell me something that troubled you that I can help you with? And also, let me tell you what are the changes that have happened in the last 1 year, which I think will give you more comfort. Now, what that did was first, obviously, comforted him that I am hearing him and I'm with him. And second is, it seemed that there are better things to focus on right now, which is the issue in hand. Now, there are various ways by how you can do by addressing the why behind the what. First is understand the chain of logic. कोई कुछ भी बोल रहा है, कुछ कारण होगा उसके पीछे, right? जो भी बोल रहा है उस पे मत फोकस करो, क्यों बोल रहा है उस पे फोकस करो. This dates back to my golden circle example in my people management session. Second is listen more. negotiation में good negotiators listen more than talking. If you listen for more than 50% of the time, it means you have more armory now because you exactly know उसे क्या चाहिए. Also, talking more makes the other person feel you're nervous, right?
Yeah, and this is where empathy comes in, which is a very, very critical art in negotiation. Again, as you said, that the successful negotiation is where the other person feels fair, and you'll only be able to provide a fair deal to the other person if you're really empathetic about the other person, and that's why you really need to understand why they are saying what they're saying, where they're coming from. Okay, so again, another example. So we're having a partnership with an company which was heavily invested by a private equity player, and the company was insistent on a 10-year contract. Okay, and we said nothing doing because we are a Roche, we are a global company, and our policy says that it is 5 years. But then, I had an informal talk with the CEO just to understand, why they're so insistent on a 5-year contract. And what I came to know was that this private equity company had invested in another partnership in China, and despite of the fact, and that was for a short duration contract, 5 years. Despite of the fact that they were performing well, that company basically terminated the contract and took all the products away. So all their investment which they had made, they're completely gone away. So basically they had already burned their hands in a short-term contract, right? So if they burned their hand once, it becomes very difficult for them to go into another situation. That's where they were coming from. So I understood where they were coming from. So what's a common path that we took? We said, okay, we cannot take this contract beyond 5 years. So we understand that your intent behind this is that you want to see the long-term commitment from Roche, right? So what we did was that we had a 5-year contract, but with an auto renewal clause of additional 5 years, right? So if you meet all the successful criteria, the contract will be renewed. So that again, their objective was met, our objective was also met, and it was only possible because we tried to really understand where they were coming from.
Yeah. And guys, when we listen and in these situations, listen to understand, don't listen to respond. मेरे साथ भी negotiation में होता है, वो बोल रहा होता है, मैं सुन भी रहा होता हूँ, but दिमाग में चल रहा होता है, मैं अगला क्या बोलूंगा. And because it's an important negotiation for me, or I'm nervous, I'm excited, and I don't listen to understand कि वो कहाँ से बोल रहा है. And a lot of times I end up saying, I know what you're saying, और फिर मैं वही बोल देता हूँ जो मुझे बोलना था. That's not listening to understand. Listening to understand means, yes, I completely understand what you're saying, and let me change the way, maybe how I was looking at this situation. So that's an important one. And if I want to kind of overall summarize, guys, these are the 6 steps that we have introduced you to today. Win-win. First, preparation. Go prepared in each one of your negotiations. Know your levers. Very important. Evaluate the intent of the negotiation. Introduce objective criteria. Market benchmark. क्या fair है? क्यों तुम्हें लग रहा है कि तुम जो बोल रहे हो सही है? And lastly, addressing the why behind the what. वो जो भी बोल रहा है, वो क्यों बोल रहा है, right? And these are the 6 things that we can look at. Quickly, let's move on to the live case study in the last 10 minutes, and then we'll open the house for questions. Vipis, you want to set the context?
Yeah, thank you, Debojit. I think I really feel like I've just finished a 3-course meal. I think the session that just happened had everything, the principles, nuggets, real life experiences, and it kind of gives a very fulfilling experience. We just have one question, so maybe if we can take that and then move on to the demo. Is that possible?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically this question was about the first point where we said that there is regarding the win-win situation, how does one know that the person on the other end is actually feeling that he has got a good deal? Does he actually spell it out, or are there other signs using which we can understand that he's got a fair deal?
Yeah. So let me take that, Debojit. Okay, so this is where I think your relationship comes in. Okay, if it is a pure transaction, okay, where I make this deal and it's over, then you have absolutely no idea whether that person has got a deal. It doesn't matter. Okay. However, if you have a good relationship, again, it's about what you feel, and you need to build your informal network as a part of your preparation. You definitely need to build your informal network through which you need to have a perspective of your customer or your client, right? So they become again your source with respect to whether they have got a fair deal or not. And also, trust me, clients are absolutely blunt. Okay, they will tell you whether they have got a fair deal or not. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
right, right. Thanks, Sid. So we'll move on to the next section, guys. I think just to set the context, this is a real life negotiation case study that we'll have between two people. So Debojit will be playing the role of an employee who's working for a large conglomerate. He's handling a particular business in that conglomerate. Asit will be playing the role of a skip level manager. So Debojit has already had one round of discussion with his manager regarding his appraisal, and he's not satisfied with what he's been given. So Asit, he's now arranged for a skip level meeting. His manager is now arranged for a skip level meeting with Asit, and both of them will now be discussing. And during this negotiation, we'll try to see if the principles which we discussed during before prior just before the session, how they are being implemented. Yeah. So yeah, Debojit.
Yeah. So the first part, and here I am the employee. So Vipin, maybe you can help me with being the mentor. I would also want to showcase to the audience how the preparation goes, and maybe Asit can also do something similar. So just be the mentor for this short call.
Yeah, great. Sure, sure. Sure. So basically, what is happening now is you are doing the preparation before the negotiation actually happens.
Yeah.
This is the background work. So guys, for just imagine I am Devojit's mentor, and he's going to call me up, and he's going to prepare himself as to what are the things that he should discuss about while the negotiation happens. So the setting is clear. Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hey, hi Devojit. Long time. How are you?
Sorry, sir. Could not call you or get in touch with you over the last.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Is back.
Yeah, Vipin, are you there?
Yes, sorry, Devojit. Some network issues. Yeah, Devojit, you were saying something. Sorry.
Yeah. So sir, I have a skip level discussion. अभी actually 5 मिनट में मेरे मैनेजर के साथ है, skip मैनेजर के साथ मेरे कंपनी में. Can you please help me sir कि मैं क्या क्या पूछ सकता हूँ उन्हें? Because मैं आपको तो पता ही है 2 साल बहुत मेहनत करी है अब मेरे बिजनेस में, और अभी अप्रेजल का टाइम है. मैंने मैनेजर से बात करी तो उन्होंने कहा कि एवरेज सा एक इंक्रीमेंट है और कोई प्रमोशन नहीं है. तो थोड़ा हेल्प कीजिए सर, ये थोड़े सीनियर बंदे हैं, मैं क्या पूछ सकता हूँ?
Sure. तो सिर्फ सिंस 5 मिनट बाकी हैं, I'll make it quick. तो see, पैसों के बारे में तो ऑलरेडी बात हो गई होगी. So even if you want to discuss that money related matter, maybe you can keep it for the end. Some of the other things that you can ask for probably is having more exposure. I'm aware your company has a lot of international opportunities. So if you can ask for an assignment which gives you that exposure, that will add a lot of weight on your CV. इसके अलावा आई बिलीव यू बीन मैनेजिंग दिस बिजनेस फॉर ओवर 2 years now, और दिस इज अ न्यू बिजनेस, तो यहाँ का एक्सपीरियंस यू हैव हैड, आई थिंक जस्ट टू कॉम्प्लीमेंट दिस एक्सपीरियंस, इफ यू कैन गेन द एक्सपीरियंस ऑफ अ already well settled business, so if you can ask if they are willing to give you an opportunity of handling a larger business size or different business unit, that could be a second option. Third could be you can ask for an outright promotion from your designation in terms of band, in terms of responsibilities that you have. And finally, about the money part, if you have a specific ask regarding what is the percentage or what is the particular payout that you're looking for, ask them to adjust in a different form. If not in terms of incentive, maybe they can give you some cash out bonus.
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू. मैं आपको कॉल करता हूँ एक बार डिस्कशन हो.
Sure. Do let me know. Yeah. Sure. Let me know. Thanks, everybody.
So now, I will, being the skip level manager, I also need to do my preparation before the meeting. So Vipin is basically Debojit's manager. So I need to get a download from Vipin with respect to what the context is. Hi Vipin, how are you?
Hello, sir. I'm doing fine. How are you, sir?
Very good, very good. So Vipin, I think there's one member from your team, Debojit, and you mentioned that he's having few concern, and you have set up a call with me, and I'm going to speak to him in the next 5 minutes. Just want to understand from you what exactly is his concern.
So, sir, we had a long chat about the increment and he about his performance actually. So he's actually just hung up on two things right now. One is he wants a better increment if we can give him more increment than what we've given him already, and also he's looking for some kind of a promotion in role and responsibility. So these are the two main things
Okay.
which he's looking for.
Okay, got it, got it. And is he a high potential candidate for us?
Well, sir, he's actually one of our top performers. So we have actually gone way beyond and given him way above the average hike. So yeah, he definitely is a high potential candidate.
And what is the risk if he leaves the organization?
There will be significant short-term impact on the team's motivation, morale. He's handling the business for some time now. Also, so overall, I think the organization and everybody in the team thinks he's very valuable for the company. So we cannot afford to leave him.
Okay. And of course, I understand that he's asking for increment and promotion, but have you really understood, what exactly is his motivation driver? What really is his key driving force? I mean, is it money, reputation, learning? What exactly is his driving force?
So more than money, I think it is recognition which inspires him. He wants to be recognized for what he's doing. He wants to be in the focus light, actually performing. He also is very keen on learning new things. So any new assignments, he is the first one to raise his hand and say, "I want to do it. I want to take up that responsibility." So these are the couple of things, and maybe higher responsibility, as I already mentioned in terms of promotion.
Got it. And have you checked with the HR? Is there any scope for further increase in the increment?
Yeah, I've pushed them a lot, really, actually. So whatever we could, we have done. We have gone beyond that. So the average is around 6%. We've already given him 10% hike. So there's not much that we can go on that.
Got it. Okay, thanks a lot, Vipin. I think this gives me a good context for me to have the conversation with Debojit. I'll let you know how it went. Yeah.
Sure, sir. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Hama?
So I guess the context was clear, guys. So I played two roles here actually. When I was speaking to Debojit, I was his mentor. When I was speaking to Asit, I was Debojit's manager, with whom Debojit already had one level of discussion, and from whom Asit wanted to take inputs as to what was already discussed and what can be discussed during the negotiation. Yeah, I think you guys can go ahead.
Hey, hi Debojit, how are you?
Hello, sir. Pleasure to meet you. We don't get to meet. You sit out of Bombay. I'm in Delhi. But it's fantastic, sir, that you took out time to meet me for this occasion.
No, it's absolutely my pleasure. And now, unfortunately, we could not meet earlier. However, I definitely keep a tap on how you have been doing because definitely you have been one of our top performers. We really, really appreciate it. And again, your work speaks for itself. You're definitely one of the most valuable members. And I just was looking at your customer feedback. That's absolutely fantastic. So really well done. I mean, I want to just thank from bottom of my heart. So really appreciate all you're doing. But I came to know that there's something which is bothering you. So I just want to hear you out. What are your concerns?
Sir, I will be candid. Thank you for the nice words that you have used, sir. Even my manager and my colleagues have spoken very highly. Sir, in the current business, we are growing rapidly and we have done most of our numbers. But even after all this, sir, when eventually the time of the organization trying to appreciate me comes, actually appreciating me, then I have been given a very average hike, sir. And also I've been told that I will continue in the same role. There is not necessarily a different role that can come up which I had in mind within the organization. So I'm feeling a little stuck and that not appreciated, not verbally only, sir, but on paper also.
Sure. No, got it. I think Debojit, I have been through your situation. I'm not sure how much context do you have, but let me give you a larger organization context. You know that this year performance has not been that good compared to what we used to have, right? So as an organization, the average increment that we had was 6%. Okay, and now you have got almost 180% of that. Okay, And just to give you some perspective, out of the 2,000 people that we have, you are among the top 5 percentile. So I think I'm not sure whether you have got the average hike. You have definitely got what is the best that we can do, and there's a significant difference between some of the average performer versus some of the top performers like you. So I think so we have tried to do whatever best that we can do. However, as you understand, we are all part of a larger organization, and there are certain organization constraints within which we need to operate. And that's the reason that this year, given the organization performance, again, if the organization does well, we all benefit, right?
Sir,
If the
sorry to
organization does
interrupt.
not,
सर
yeah,
सॉरी टू इंटरप्ट, आई एग्री विथ यू, बट सर आप देख सकते हो मेरा बिजनेस सबसे ज्यादा ग्रो किया है,
right,
एंड आई हैव
right,
डिलीवर्ड the 20% growth on the last year numbers.
right,
Although we are part of a large organization, I have been the biggest contributor in
right,
whatever positives have happened for the organization. So why should I
right,
suffer
right.
if the organization overall didn't do well, sir?
Right, right, right. I think that's a fair ask, Debojit. So again, I completely understand your perspective. However, again, let me give you a larger organization perspective. So when we talk about the annual increment, so this again has a component where if the organization does well, we all are because are part of the organization. That's where there's a significant component of our organization performance. However, your point about your division doing well is valid, and that is where we have the bonus. Okay, so bonus again, majority of the component is linked to your division's performance. Okay, that again is 6 months down the line. Okay, so if you continue to do well, if you continue to meet your target, then you will be compensated accordingly through the bonus. So that's a mechanism. Again, our objective is that annual increment is something which is to take care of the inflation. Of course, and we try to make sure that there's a difference between the top performers versus average performer. But anything related to performance is we typically take care in the case of bonus. And you yourself have got a fantastic bonus last year, and I don't see any reason why you will not get it as long as you're performing. So that's something that we should take care of it. But Devajit, I just want to understand from you, because you're such a passionate person. Is there something else that you think because money 50 lakhs here and there, again if you visit 10 years down the line and you look back at this scenario, you look at how silly I was doing this thing about 50,000 or 1 lakh. Okay, so that anyways, as I said, will take care of in the bonus cycle. However, what I really want to understand is that what is your long term aspiration, what do you really want to do, and what do you want to get out of this organization beyond the monetary part. I think we try to take care, but what is it that you really want to get out from this organization?
Sir, two parts to that. One is, I think I would want learning and learning opportunities. I have whatever I have done in the last 2 years has been learning by doing myself.
Yeah.
But if I can get some external help in learning opportunities, I hear that the company has international tie-ups with institutes
Yeah.
and universities. If
Yeah.
I can do a course maybe in a reputed university outside India,
Yeah.
that will add to both my CV and my own learning.
Yeah.
Secondly, if I can also parallelly have a possible growth opportunity,
Sure.
maybe promotion is too shallow an expression,
Yeah.
but I would want to have a growth opportunity in a maybe more stable business,
Right.
where also I can learn how complex processes work, how they are executed.
Right. So that's a fair expectation, Debojit. And again, as I said, we definitely are here to understand what your needs are, and we'll try to fulfill them. But again, let me just share with you based on what my experience has been. So look, education as a sector is one of the fastest growing sector. Okay, if you tell me that for a person who's as high potential as you, it doesn't take me much to put you in a higher position in a media organization. Okay, however, uh, there will be a significant opportunity loss for you. Okay, because again, yes, you will understand about processes, but your pace of learning will be very slow. The entire reason for me to enter into this education space is that because at some point you need to work in a fast-paced environment, and the entire reason for giving such a young person like you this responsibility of managing this entire division is that we believe that it's a young force who will take these kind of startups forward. So I understand your need of understanding about the processes system. That will definitely help you, but whether that will be a full-time role, again, I have my reservation, but I definitely think that may not be something that you will enjoy. However, what I can do is that I can arrange a short-term project for you, where you continue with whatever your main responsibility is. You work on a short-term project and see whether it makes sense for you. Because I definitely do not want to put you in a situation where 6 months down the line you come back and say that, look, sir, this did not work out. Can it come back? Okay, this may not be helpful for both of us. So we can definitely arrange a short-term project for you, where you just see, get a feel of it, and then if you really like it, then we can take it forward from there. But again, based on my experience, what I can tell you is that for a person like you, and this is just the environment where you'll absolutely thrive. Of course there are advantage of having a large organization, system and processes, but such a smart person like you, you might just worry is that you may get suffocated there. And to your second point about learning opportunity, absolutely, I was also thinking about it, because at such a young age, you have been given leadership position. You have learned everything on your own. Okay, but I think it's high time that if you manage larger, complex teams, there's some bit of training will be helpful. So we have already had few tie-ups with some international universities, where I think you need some kind of coaching with respect to leadership. I don't think you need technical coaching, that anyways go at, or otherwise you will learn it. But I think leadership is an area where I think it will add significant value to you, because you are also aspiring for a promotion, right? So we want you to be successful. We do not want to put you in a position where you fail in your role. Okay, that definitely will be a disheartening thing for you as well as for me. Okay, so let's just wait for a few months. As I said, we'll put you in the training program. At the same time, we'll give you the exposure to the leadership, and then you apply those principles. And maybe we talk about after 1 year where you are, because you yourself have identified few areas of development in your leadership style, right? So this is something which will help you. Does that make sense to you, Devajit?
Yeah. So, sir, if I can summarize, you're saying that I can get compensated through the variable pay, which is coming within 6 months. Secondly, I would be exposed to a project role in the stable part of the organization, and also I'll get an international exposure for learning. Is that right?
That's right. But as I said, okay, from an increment perspective, we have done whatever best that we could do. I think you will also appreciate that we have gone beyond what we could have typically done, right? So there, that so we do not have much scope. As I said, variable pay, which again is based on completely your performance. You still have 6 months time. You overachieve, you get a higher bonus. As simple as that. So that's it's completely in your hands. And your development area as a leadership as well as project, that is something that when I will have Vipin and the HR work it out for you. Yeah. Okay, thanks a lot, Devojit. I think it was wonderful speaking to you. I look forward to again see you cross many heights in the future.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, guys, now we'll open the house for questions. Vipin, feel free to read out whatever question. Feel free to ask, guys. While you're asking, I will project what went behind the scenes. If you would have seen the interaction, these were some of the things that I was focusing on as the candidate. And you can maybe read through if you want some sort of preparation, what kind of details I went to, whether I was, what kind of levers that I could have possibly used, what was the intent that I could see from my manager, what was the objective criteria that I could have used, the why versus what principle. And similarly, these were some of the things that the manager, in this case Asit, the skip manager Asit, that he was using in each one of the parameters of negotiation. Yeah, feel free to ask questions, guys.
Yeah, so we have a couple of questions. I think one is more related to the negotiation that we just did. It was asking us if we have time, maybe we can show a negotiation between a poor performer and a skip manager. So here, for example, both of you are on the same page that the performance is great. How would it look different if the person has a higher rating of himself than the actual performance? How would that negotiation look like? Maybe some other time we can.
So Zabaji, let me take that.
Vipin, just be a little loud from now. Yes, Asit, go ahead.
In case of somebody, and I'm sure all of us have come across a situation where the person thinks that, okay, we have done fantastically well, why can't the company do anything? At this point of time, I don't think that person will reach the skip level. Okay, I think it's a responsibility of the manager to make him realize, what his or her contribution is and where he stands objectively, because again, skip level is also an indication of intent from the manager saying that we value you. Okay. However, if you do it for each and everybody, you lose that value in front of, say, a good candidate like Devojit, right? So definitely you want to use the skip level only for a select set of candidates. That's number one. Okay. And with respect to handling, by the manager, what I personally do is that be as objective as possible. Okay, and show them what the mirror is. Okay, at some point of time, it just does not work when we try to become too sweet, saying no, you have done really well. Basically, you will do more harm to that person than telling the truth. So it's always important that be as objective as possible. If you think that the candidate is not good, there's an area of improvement, be as transparent and as objective as possible to make him be in his or her interest.
Okay, so thanks, Asit. There's another question by Saurav who's asking if negotiation is more about managing the EQ than the actual content or the price or benefits which are up for discussion. Is it more about managing the person on the other end, or is it actually about what is being offered and what can be given?
Yeah, I'll answer that. I think, Saurabh, very clearly EQ is a very important tool in order to win the negotiation, but still it is comparatively most important to have data that is backing what you are using. If you remember the objective criteria slide, if you are not backing it up with market relevant data, then the negotiation doesn't go forward. For example, even in the role play that we did, Asit was talking about how the organization is faring again and again, and therefore what is the average increment and where I need to take it. I was talking about the achievements that I have done. My business is the fastest growing. I have achieved, let's say, fastest growth. So it's very important that you're focusing on the data also. EQ is in terms of understanding Asit a little better. See, in the preparation that we did, Asit asked my manager, how is Devojit? In terms of what are his needs. बोल तो कुछ रहा है, कुछ और तो दिमाग में नहीं है, वो भी बताओ मुझे. That's EQ, emotional intelligence to handle the person. तो जब विपिन ने बताया कि हाँ जी वो लर्निंग पे फोकस करता है, तो इंटरनेशनल एक्सपोजर पहले से प्रिपेयर्ड था. मैंने भी अपने मेंटर को पूछा कि क्या मांग सकता हूँ. So again, that's all. EQ is a tool, but to reach the end, it's more a means than the end itself.
Yeah, and again, so EQ is, if I put it simply, EQ is a necessary condition, not necessarily a sufficient condition. Yeah. Definitely it is needed, but you need to have your preparation ready, you need to have your evidence ready, you need to have your benchmarking ready, you need to understand the client context. All these things put together will help you. But again, preparation without having a real EQ also may not help you.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Saurabh.
So we have one from Bharat, and this is probably a very basic one. Most of us have this on our mind. We say that most of the times when we are entering a negotiation, we know that the person on the other hand will negotiate and try to bring the price down. So keeping that in mind, should we offer a really inflated price, or is it worthwhile to give actually a value-based pricing and then try to explain it to him?
Asit, I'll answer that. Guys, the problem is our focus is on the price. The problem is not their focus is on the price. Negotiation is about giving options and not about haggling on price. So what you should go on the table is, what are the 10 different levers that I can talk on other than the price, which will make them realize that we are giving them a great product or a service, whatever we are trying to sell. So if genuinely our focus is on all the levers, then the client automatically tends to start understanding that price is maybe a little high, but I'm getting something worth it. And to answer your question directly, whatever is your company price is your company price, right? And even if you're the CEO of the company, you need to respect that I sell my product at this price, and no one should negotiate with me on that price. And there might be some flex, 2%, 5%, depending on that. Yeah.
And it also depends on, again, your company policy, you as an individual. Okay, for example, when we try to negotiate, for example, any consulting engagement, we know that for procurement guys, whenever we will negotiate, they have their KPI saying that they need to reduce the price by 10%. So that we already know. Okay, so we definitely factor that in our proposal. Okay. Also, there may be cases where if you look at any shop, there are some brands which definitely do not even reduce 1 rupees, okay, because that's who they stand for. They're saying that, look, this is the value that we offer, and this is what it is. Okay. Similarly, as a company, you like have a huge variation with respect to negotiation. The example that I gave you, right? At one point of time, I dropped the price by 40%. So after that, I never ever reduce my price below 20%. That's the threshold. Okay. Either you take it, okay, whether I'm able to convince you on the value that I'm offering, or I try to reduce the scope of the project so that, within the price which the client is asking, I'm able to offer the value corresponding to the price. But definitely not, compromise too much on having pegged at a very high price and then reducing it, because that word will definitely spread to your other customers.
Very well put, Asit. I think.
Hope Bharat, we have answered your question.
Yeah.
Debojit, I have one query. Can I ask?
Yeah,
Or,
go ahead, Kirti.
in terms of negotiations, very interesting facts which came out recently. So I being into logistics industry, so I'm heading the entire upper north region for Punjab, Himachal, Haryana, and JK, and part of NCR also. So for everyone interest and the entire audience, as Asit and as you mentioned about pricing. So in our industry also, that every customer, every enterprise customer, B2B customer, their interest is to reduce the cost in terms of the freight cost. Let's say if that customer is moving the goods from X location to Y location, and there are certain freight charges, the customer mindset is, let's reduce this cost. So we realized over a period of time that whosoever in the field, my boys or the sales team, so they are doing the negotiations with the customers, and let me find out that to whom they are interacting with. And very interesting facts came out as it that most of the sales guys in logistics industry, they are interacting with a logistics manager. So we realized that the KPIs of the logistics manager is different than the KPIs of the supply chain head. So then we changed the theory that rather than interacting with the logistics managers, try to engage the supply chain head. Why?
Yeah.
The logistics managers, the only KPI is to reduce the cost from X to Y, and the supply chain head KPI is to reduce the overall cost.
Yeah.
In terms of the inventory, also in terms of the freight, also in terms of the repeat orders, also so his KPI is different. Then we said and changed the modalities of negotiation and our sale pitch also. And the sale pitch was given to the sales guys that once you interact with the supply chain head, let's focus on a value proposition rather than on a pricing. So we never talk about pricing with our customers. So when customer said that your pricing is this, you guys are premium than the competition is doing that, competition is doing this. So our answer is that we are not here to discuss a pricing. We are here for a value proposition. My product is different. My USP of the product is different. I am delivering the goods from X to Y within 3 days across pan India. And while you dealing with the other logistics players, they are delivering the goods within 10 days, 20 days, 15 days, whatever the tat is. So rather than focusing on pricing, my point is, let's focus on your value proposition, what you are bring on the table. And then finally, we ended up and came to a conclusion that interacting with the supply chain head, wherein we uh, give them a showcase or a mirror to the supply chain head that if I am moving the goods, your inventory cost will also go down. So you can't go for a multiple warehouses for yourself to store the goods. Let's say if I am moving it, then you get a repeat orders also from your consignees. So it's a win-win situation for both the parties. So this way we cracked the problem of pricing.
Very
So I
good
thought
example.
let me discuss
Very
with
good.
the
Yeah. Very good example, Kirti. That's exactly the point, is that how do you convert this discussion from price to value?
Correct.
Right? That is exactly a brilliant example. Thanks for sharing today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we have a next one which says how to create need during a negotiation meeting. I'm not sure if need creation should be a part of negotiation meeting. Would you want to answer that, Devali?
Yeah, Vipin, your voice is still little less audible,
Hello?
although I heard that. Yeah. Also, if you can mention the name of the person who asked, that
Yeah, so
helps in giving context.
this was an anonymous question. It is by Redmi. So yeah.
Okay, so if there is no need, there is no negotiation. If you remember the storytelling session, without a conflict, there is no story. Similarly, if the person is sitting in front of you, there is something or the other that the person needs. So I think I will answer it simply. You have to identify what that need is. It could be a latent need, it could be an obvious one, but unless you know the need, you won't move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. So
You can go to the
Vishal,
next question.
yeah, is my voice better, Devuji?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So Vishal Khajuria, he asks, what are the ways to create value by capitalizing on shared interests? A lot of difficult words there, but I think
Yeah.
it's
So
about
that's
mutual value creation.
another topic. That's another topic in itself. Possibly, Debojit, you may want to take that topic. That how do you create value? So that's $1 million question. So maybe we'll run out of time, but that's a very important question. But possibly, in the interest of time, we may have to have a separate session for that.
Yeah. Vishal, also I'll reach out to you separately.
Yeah. So B. Bandhopadhyay asks if we have to renegotiate the price due to any unavoidable circumstances. How do we pitch it to vendors? What are the tools that we use to get discount from vendors? What kind of matrices which should we give?
Yeah.
So
So
there's a
this
market
again,
recession.
yeah. So then it goes back to the situation of empathy, right? Okay. And if when the vendor tried to negotiate with you from the first time, if you have a good relationship, okay, and it's very common in this COVID situation. Many people are trying to negotiate for their rental, and many people are trying to negotiate with the payment days. Okay, and we have had such discussion where our distributors have said that sir, we just do not have the cash flow, so can we have a higher credit period? And we have offered them. Okay, so it's again goes back to the long-term relationship that you want to have with the partner, and again what is possible for you, what is not possible for you, be very transparent about it. And therefore the one thing, if you do at this stage, if you have helped another person, no matter wherever you are, if you have helped one person when that person was in desperate need, that person, you have won it for life. Okay, it may be a small investment that you have to make to support your vendor, but that vendor will do anything for you subsequently when things go up. So this is again an investment for you. Not, of course, it comes at a cost, but it's an investment which will have an ROI of multifolds.
Thanks, Asit. Krishna is asking, is there an ideal time for negotiation?
Yeah, Vipin, maybe last two questions, and we want to finish by one. Yeah.
Sure. So maybe we can take this one first. This is by Krishna Kaburu, who asks, is there an ideal time frame that we should fix to a negotiation, or can we have multiple negotiation meetings if one is not successful?
Yes, in fact, time frame can also be one of the negotiation lever. Okay, for example, it is for your customer. Okay, so in some of the projects that I get, the client try to negotiate with me on price. Okay, I said, okay, fair enough. At this point of time, I will not be able to do it because my team is completely blocked. Can we do it after, say, for example, 2 months, when I have spare capacity in my team? I'll be able to offer it at a lower price. Many times the clients do not take that offer. Okay, because nobody will wait for 1 month. Okay, so in fact, I use time as an advantage, okay, to negotiate on the price.
True. All of us have had situations where we say, sir, ये manager आज ही आए हैं, चले जाएंगे. तो जो भी करना है आज कर लीजिए. Decisions. Those kind of negotiations. Yeah. So we'll take the last one, and I'll probably, the remaining questions we can take up later. So this is by Arvind, who says, is it possible? Many times what happens is we are not able to find out at a win-win situation, and there are things which people tend to hide. which later when discovered lead to spoiling relationships. So how is it possible? How do you afford that you don't lose a client and also break the dilemma of not spoiling that relationship and also getting a good deal for yourself?
Yeah, so what I have realized, okay, after having discussion with many clients, is that if you believe, and one of the point which Debojit mentioned is that if you believe that the client is not trustworthy, okay, it is just not worth your time to build on that relationship. It is okay to let go of some business, okay, rather than doing business with some non-trustworthy person. And it absolutely, we all come across such persons where they just blatantly they may tell lie in front of you and you fall for that trap, and later you realize that, okay, shit, it was a complete trap for me. That's absolutely fine. That's when you learn, okay, but that does not mean that you do not trust the other person. Okay, and
Thank you.
sometimes if you have to let go of that deal, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, thank you so much, Asit. Your dog says hi. Say hi to him.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. I will answer all the questions on my LinkedIn post, and I will encourage Asit also to answer. Asit, I will post the questions that people have asked that we unfortunately could not answer. And we should answer all of them. You can connect with me on LinkedIn if you are not already connected, and you will get answers to all your questions. I'll tag you while answering you. Thank you all for joining. Next Saturday, we are going to deal with a very, very current burning topic, which is dealing with professional uncertainty. This is the topic that we are going to take up for next Saturday, given the current situation because of the COVID pandemic. Mr. Anand Agarwal, CFO of VMart, is going to join us for as the speaker for this session along with me. I've worked with Anand very closely. Like Asit, he's also been a guide and a mentor for my professional life, and he will join me for the next session, which is next Saturday, 12 o'clock, on the topic of dealing with professional uncertainty. See you all, guys. Thank you very much, Asit. It's been a pleasure. I think all your examples were very relevant for our day-to-day lives, and hope we have together been able to bring some value to the audience that joined us today.
No, thank you everyone. Debojit, Palak, Vipin. I think it's a fantastic session that you guys are conducting. So many congratulations to you and for the audience. I mean, on Saturday, spending this time, hopefully it was worth it. But as Debojit said, just feel free to reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to help you in whatever way we can.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
everyone.
sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.